Hey, what's up, everybody? And thank you for listening to Operation Agency Freedom, where we are bringing you top secret advice from the world's most badass digital agency owners and influencers. These amazing men and women are sharing their stories of how they have built 6, 7, and 8-figure digital agencies and how you can too. My name is Chris Martinez, CEO of Dude, where we help digital agencies by giving them the people and the processes so they can take on more website projects and scale profitably. And today I am joined by a legend. You've seen him speaking on stages. You've seen him everywhere. Marcus Murphy from DigitalMarketer. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Man, what an intro. And also, it's also funny, man, because for everybody that doesn't get to see all this stuff, Chris gets on here and he's like, yeah, we're going to do this and this and this. Then he hits the record button and turns into a beast over here on the microphone. So
Well,
I'm going to try.
honestly,
I'm gonna bring this energy and try and match you, but if I'm disingenuous, I'll be an a-hole. So I'm gonna make sure that I'll feed off of you. This is
dude,
great.
you always bring it. I've seen you on stage. You bring it. It's not a problem. But this is interesting, and it leads perfectly into our roundtable discussion because we're going to talk. You played soccer growing up. I played soccer growing up.
Yep.
And I kind of take that mentality too. Like before the games, I'm like focused. I'm not really talkative. And as soon as that whistle blows, it's game time. Like I'm going 100%. And so it's the same thing. I kind of bring that type of mentality when I do my podcast too. So
yeah, I like that. That's really cool, actually. And I feel like, it's a lot of players, a lot of really good players actually are very much, just super chill off the pitch. They're not really, they just kind of like ho-hum. And then when they actually know the whistle blows, it's like a whole different mentality.
yeah. So tell us about your kind of like your soccer story and, growing up playing and all that good stuff.
Yeah, so I grew up in Ohio, and Ohio was not necessarily famous for soccer. It's very famous for American football because it's just like a religion like it is in Texas or anywhere else in the States. And it's funny, though, because we had a really competitive, like my age group, I'm 36 now. At the time, I think it was heading into high school, was a really competitive, few different club teams in the area, and had a lot of those guys that actually played in those clubs go on to play professional and collegiate level soccer. So it was really competitive. So we used to have like high school soccer used to be a big deal when I was growing up. Like it actually was a big deal. Like club is predominantly the biggest thing you can do now. It's where kind of most teams pick you up.
Yep.
But I would say at the time there were like still high school rivalries with soccer, which I loved. And so growing up in Ohio, we won state title my senior year. We were my 4-year kind of high school record. We had lost 6 games in 4 years, which was pretty crazy for a Ohio team. And we had just an incredible coach. In fact, the coach was I just had an opportunity. I got to go back to my high school and give a keynote. They invited me back on a leadership series to talk to like a whole school assembly. And I literally sat there and laughed because I was like, if I was there and I was a student, I would hate me. You know what I mean? Like that was the kind of student I was. And my coach from high school came back and sat there and gave me a huge hug. And it was amazing because honestly, the soccer was so important because I didn't really, I didn't have I didn't have a nuclear household. I didn't have a dad in the household. So my coaches really stepped in to kind of be the guiding light mentors that I need. So yeah, soccer played a huge part of that, competitive nature, all that stuff. I had a lot of success, went on and played college soccer, went over to England after college, played for Peterborough United, which was pretty cool. Did that for like a little bit of like a summer and then inevitably got hurt, which is like a story of so many dudes. You got to stretch, guys. You got to drink water.
Yeah, you're not elastic.
No, especially not now. I feel it now more than I did when I got hurt. Oh man, I feel it every day when it gets cold. It's like old man talk. It's like, God, the weather's coming and like I feel the rain in my knee. Yeah, that's how it feels.
Exactly. So what position did you play growing up?
So I was a striker since I was I think I played a little bit on club. On my club side, I played some defensive midfield, but predominantly, I was a goal scorer. Yeah.
Awesome, man. And like, what was one of the things that that like kept you connected to soccer, like that made you fall in love with the sport?
Everybody in my family played football. Everybody in my family played American football, and they were great at it. And I think I just wanted to be different, but I was always great. The thing I excelled really quickly at soccer. I was fast. I could always, I think I had different skills than my brothers and my dad. And it's actually interesting because I had to make a decision going into high school whether I was going to play American football or I was going to play soccer. And I remember having like that discussion with my dad and being like, hey, I know that I have a build that could probably bring me to the NFL someday, but I want to go over here and play more of a finesse sport. I want to play this sport because I just enjoyed I enjoyed the atmosphere. I enjoyed the consistent action and no breaks. Like football always bothered me because you had breaks and huddles and like all this stuff. And I was just like, man, I love the seamlessness of soccer and the ability to kind of keep the action going.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually one of the reasons why I ended up like falling in love with the sport. You know, when I was a kid, I just loved to run around. Like I was one of those kids where like the second that I stepped on the field, I just loved playing soccer, and it's all that I wanted to do.
Yep.
As I got older, soccer became like a form of expression for
Yeah.
me. Because like you mentioned, like it's not there's no stops aside from when the ball goes out of bounds or something.
Yep.
And I was a center midfielder, for the most part, depending on what team I was playing with. But for the most part, I was an offensive center midfielder. And so like being able to see a run, like, and hit a 40-yard ball onto somebody making a run on the other side of the field,
Yeah.
or split the defense or just dribble through a bunch of guys. Like to me, that was like the closest form of expression that I had at that time.
Yep.
Because obviously I didn't have a business, or I wasn't one of those entrepreneurs that started a business when I was like 13 years old.
Yep.
And so like, this was like my outlet. And I just absolutely loved being on the field because it was like a time where I felt like I could really be myself.
Yeah, that's really cool, man. And what's really funny is like the things that really solidified it are the kind of those moments. Like, yes, I played, but I was a fan. Like I was a massive fan. And at the time when, I was watching European soccer, European football every weekend, like waking up super early to try and catch matches. And then I went and lived in England, which I think actually made it really solid. Like in college, we went over in between seasons and I lived in England in that 04-05 season when Arsenal was like Henry and Bergkamp.
Oh yeah. Untouchables.
Yeah.
They went like 40 games unbeaten or something like that.
So like, yeah, so I got like a firsthand, I was at every derby match. I mean, I really got to see some of the best people in the world that have ever played the sport play, which was so inspiring. And, seeing those North Stars made it only even more something that I wanted to do. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. Well, okay. So we got to transition. We got to talk about business. We could talk about soccer all day.
Yeah.
So you come back from England after that injury.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're working with DigitalMarketer. You're a leader. You're one of the leaders within that massively successful organization, global leader when it comes to education related to digital marketing. What is the path that you took from, I'm hanging up my boots essentially, and now I'm going to go start working, and like eventually you got to where you're at now?
Dang, that's such a long story. It's like a jungle gym. Everybody's always like, they always think about it like there's some kind of ladder, right, in your mind that you're just thinking you're like running up these rungs. I mean, there's nothing. It's not like that. It's like jumping over sideways and like chance and luck and all this stuff that comes into
soccer. It. I'm telling you, it's like soccer.
It's totally an interesting connection. The one thing I'll say is like, yeah, after I came back to the States, I took an illustrious working MBA at Enterprise Rental Car, which was the first job that I had. And, if anybody actually knows anything about those type of rental cars, situation like that training, the manager training programs, they are good. Like if you want to be in sales, like you're selling face to face with people behind a counter, you're trying to get them to take all that unnecessary insurance that they want you to take. That is a sales tactic. But yeah, I remember that being the first thing. And I remember the big switch for me was then I went into higher education. So I was young. I was like 20 years old. And then I had all these different admissions counselors would come in and rent cars from this downtown location that I was working at for Enterprise. And they were bubbly and they were amazing. And they were so fun to talk to. And then we got to know one another. And there was a position that came available as an admissions counselor at Syracuse University in New York. And I remember sitting around going, wow, I read the description. I'm like talking to people in front of groups, selling them on education, trying to get more applications, like doing information sessions and like all this stuff, and like reviewing applications sound like a dream. I was like, yeah, that sounds like me. So I took that job. And honestly, I'd say that job was the catalyst, because that one was the first time it ever put me in front of audiences and I started speaking and started to teach and started to really, use that muscle. And honestly, what happened was I got up and started doing those college info sessions. Do you know what I'm talking about? Like if you ever went and visited a campus, like they would go through like ABC. It was awful, man. I remember one day I looked up in the audience and I was just like sitting there and I said, hey, if this is terrible, like raise your hand. And all these kids like raise their hand, their parents were hitting them, like just so I started, and I just deviated from the script. And I started talking about, man, like, this is what my college experience was like. This is when my mom dropped me off at school. This is when I met my roommate for the first time. This is like, you're going to be happy, sad, homesick, and love all in one the first year, right? Like, all these different emotions and stories, and everybody was like laughing. So I didn't tell anybody I actually changed the script. So I was just doing it on my own, and I was getting all these different, like, all of a sudden you got to see all these different applications start to go up through my sessions. And so one day I get a phone call from the dean of the school, and she said, "Hey, can you come up? The chancellor happened to make one of your sessions in the back, and we'd like you to come up to the office and talk to you for a second." And I was like, "Oh shit, I'm getting fired." Like, that's what that is. And then we got up there, and they're like, "Man, Marcus, we were in your session and we really loved it. We want to see if we can work with you to rewrite this thing to make it fresh." And I was like, "Oh, wow." So then I started speaking everywhere and all the time. And that was big because every single job I took from there, I was at Yelp. After that, but it was super early when people didn't know what Yelp was. Then I went over to another company called Infusionsoft after my time at Yelp, and now that's called Keep. And that's really all of that. There was always a speaking component involved in every single thing that I did, even in every sales role that I had. I was really, the one who would still continue to speak and teach and do all those things internally. And so when I was actually speaking for Infusionsoft, because they sent me on the road to sell applications, is when I met Ryan Deiss for the first time. And that was, it was really wild. I was in London. We were in Chelsea. We're at the same event. It's a guy named Nick James who put on this thing called Bums and Seats Boot Camp, which now has a better name called Expert Empires, which is a big deal in the UK. Nice. And I'm sitting in the back in the green room getting ready to get mic'd up. And this dude walks in, and he's just like this kind of like little humble dude, he's whatever. And with his wife, and he just gets mobbed. And people, I was like, "Yo, who's this guy?" And somebody's like, "Yo, that's Ryan Deiss." And I was like, they're like, "Do you want to meet him?" And I'm like, "No, I don't." I'm not too cool for that.
I'm good.
He sheds the crowd, kind of using his wife as a shield. Because if you know anything about Ryan's an incredible communicator, but he's actually like an INTJ. So he's more of an introvert and doesn't really love the crowds, which he's used me now as a shield for the last 4 years, by the way. So which is fine. But he got in the back of the room, got mic'd up, and went on stage, and I'm sitting in the back. And as a speaker, by the way, if you're a speaker out there, anytime you watch another speaker, you are highly critical. Like, it doesn't matter. You can admit it to yourself. You are sitting there waiting, like having high expectations because you value that craft. And I'm sitting in the back, and Ryan started talking, and I said, "Holy crap, this guy's different." Yeah. And I sat there and I was like, the kind of different where it's like, hey, he's at the cool kids table in high school, and you're not a part of it. Do you know what I mean? Like, that's the kind of feel, like, you clearly know that you don't sit at that table. And so I remember running back to my hotel at the end of the day, which I don't know what time it was here in the States, and call my wife and just being like, "I don't know what this is, but I feel like I need to work with this guy." And just so happened when I got back to Arizona and Infusionsoft, they assigned me as the strategic partnership liaison, or whatever it is, the development partner for DigitalMarketer. And so Ryan and I became friends. The rest was history. This position opened up, and honestly, I've been down here now for 4 years in Austin, building out teams, speaking, and moving this whole huge thing, and being a part of this massive machine. And it has been like that crazy journey. So I know that sounds like a long story, but from getting hurt and playing soccer till now, that's the most abridged version I could ever lay out there. But yeah, being a part of DigitalMarketer is the real reason why it changed my life.
No, I love it, man. I love it. So, DigitalMarketer has gone through several evolutions, at least that I've seen. What are some of the new things that you guys are working on right now? Because it is unprecedented times, like the world is on lockdown, and education, in my opinion, is unbelievably important right now. And I know that you guys have had initiatives where you're giving away lessons for free and all this stuff. So like, what is percolating at DigitalMarketer headquarters right now?
Man, what is percolating that I can talk about? Is the other part. Yeah, I mean, I think we made the right decision. Richard Linder, our president, had an idea when we were sitting around, kind of when all this really was kicking off, the pandemic, and people sheltering in place and that kind of stuff. And we were trying to figure out how to respond to it. And he's like, "Hey, we need to open this up for people. This is the right thing to do. And I don't know how we're going to get back or whatever, or how we're going to monetize this. And there's no plan for that." He just said, "Man, we got to really do this." And so we, for the first time ever, let people sign up. No credit card, no funnel, no anything, just full access and with an email address. And I think that was the right move because 70 something thousand people signed up. new people signed up for it.
That's
And
it? Just 70,000?
it was crazy. I mean, honestly, man, like that's the craziest number I've ever heard. And so we're sitting there and we're like, well, how the heck do we get back to normal? Like we have all these wonderful people in our community. They've joined our private Facebook groups. They're taking all these certifications. They're talking to the world about it, putting up, the certs online and showing everybody that they had completed our courses and they were proud of it. And so we basically, made it easy for people to come in and a lot of people did join our community full time. And a lot of other people got the benefit for 60 days of really getting in there and learning. And I think that really sparked something in us because at our core, our mission is to double the size of 10,000 businesses. And I know for a fact that what it did, it just kind of rejuvenated that. Because after over 4 years, that mission it's heavy. It's a heavy burden to have that and steer the ship around, trying to make sure that you're helping everybody and trying your best. And just seeing these people value the education, the information that they're getting and seeing them apply it, which was even more fulfilling, was seeing people that are not just reading and taking in content, but truly applying it and truly like implementing. I realized that there were people's businesses that were saved, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are people that through the content that was produced and the hard work that we so much, I mean, we take it for granted, right? Like we're in the lab every day creating and sharing, because that's one of our core values is documenting and sharing our knowledge. And I know for a fact that we got every single kind of little victory story about people that are like, wow, if I didn't take this certification, I would never have pivoted, which I would have lost my business, and there's just numerous testimonials that are coming out of just this time period of us, making that decision and Richard bringing that to the table for us. So the buzz around here is like, not how do we get back to normal per se, but really like, how do we get to a new normal? How do we start to prepare for a reality in a world post pandemic where we can figure out the things that we learned during this time and leave kind of the stuff behind us that we didn't love back in normal and try to figure out what is the next thing that people care about. And right now, info products and education is massive. Like there's a massive need and we are trying to gear up to meet that need.
So from, because our show is specifically for agency owners, there's a ton of agencies that are partners with DigitalMarketer. From what you see, what are some of the things that are helping agencies to thrive in this environment that we're living in right now?
What's really crazy is so we have an agency community here at DigitalMarketer. We have a certified partner
Mm-hmm.
program,
Mm-hmm.
which is different because it's not like MarTech or SaaS. So we don't have like a reseller program. This is all about, we're literally selling a community and agency assets that are what we teach to help people get clients. So I just sat on stage yesterday because every single month we do an agency training day, and I did it virtually for the first time in 2 years, where there was nobody in the audience, and I'm teaching this course. And I remember sitting there thinking to myself, I'm like, wow, the biggest thing that agencies can do right now, and the biggest prediction I have, is to double down on community. And I know it sounds interesting because we can so very much I think about it like this. There are about 250 million businesses in the US, all right? And there's 300 million people. There's
Mm-hmm.
a lot, like there's just a tremendous amount of businesses and just thinking about how much opportunity is out there. A true agency owner who can start to see the amount of opportunity and how much need there is for agencies would start to look at their competitors, quote unquote, as community instead of competition. And I think that what we can really do now as agency owners is to jump in and start to really get involved with your peers, getting involved in community, finding out what people are doing, what's working for them. Like, how are they running virtual events for their clients? How are they buying traffic right now when it's at its cheapest? How are they navigating, people that are freaking out on the client side, thinking about retainers and retention and what, easing up on certain things? Like, how are they navigating all the noise and all the uncertainty? Well, the only way you can do that isn't in isolation, right? It isn't by yourself. This is no time to be a solopreneur. Okay. This is the time to really start to reach out laterally and start to get into a community and be a united front that wants each other to win. And I think that's the real thing that I'm seeing from our response from our community. For sure, our agency community here at DigitalMarketer has truly leaned on each other. And you should see the Facebook group. I mean, it's just ideas and what's working and what's not, and a ton of questions and dialogue and conversation since this thing started. And people are getting creative and they're finding really wonderful ways to still remotely create this really value added business for their clients and trying not to lose that physical touch that maybe we've taken for granted. So yeah, I'd say community has been the biggest thing that's been the topic of conversation for us, and what I could see that people can start investing in to win.
That's awesome, man. On the actual specific side, do you have anything off the top of your head that seems to be working for the people in your group right now?
Yeah, absolutely. So, what's crazy is I think that what people have figured out is that, well, one, virtual events are everywhere, by the
Hmm.
way, and some of them are good and some of them are terrible, and some people should just stop because you just can't pull it off. But there are people who are trying to find ways to give their clients great ideas on how to maintain a certain amount of intimacy with their customers. And what I mean by that, I'll give you an example. There was especially for physical companies, like brick and mortar spots,
Yeah.
like restaurants right now, because the hospitality industry has been just demolished, right?
Yeah.
Like
Hammered.
if you're an agency owner right now and you have restaurants, for example. So what people have been doing, and this is really cool. This came up as an agency that found this idea for to do like a tasting, but a virtual one. So basically what they're doing is they're having the restaurant put together like a sample, like whatever, or cooking or some kind of like thing that they can prepare. So they got all the ingredients for it.
Hmm.
And then they people can buy it. They get a bottle of wine, they go home, they get onto Zoom for virtual, and there's a chef there and he's taking everybody through how to make this. It's like a date night idea. And they're now moving a ton of these packets. There's also another company that they work with, which is like a cheese company, like a gourmet cheese company. And they did this cheese tasting, but it was virtual. So everybody would go get these cheeses. They'd pick it up from the store, from the restaurant, which is great because nobody was coming to the restaurant at all. So they just decided to say, how do we highlight certain features, then make it community based, make it a cohort that people have to go through together, which
Hmm.
creates this community, which I keep talking about. And it becomes really valuable because people now can share an experience from their comfort of their own home with other people and be able to see that something they look forward to every week. So that both of those, restaurant and the gourmet cheese company, are seeing, sustainability within that market from a really cool creative idea from an agency who just said, you know what, if I can focus on community and how to bring people together with something that's virtual but still feels intimate, then I think that we can keep these people afloat, and they did, and it's really cool.
Yeah. What a great idea. I actually, personally, I haven't heard this in the past like week or so. And at least the agencies that we work with, they're starting to get really, really busy because I think that people are starting to accept that this reality that we're living in right now, coronavirus isn't going away.
Yeah.
Like the way that we live through it is changing almost like hourly.
Right.
But overall, coronavirus is not going away anytime soon. And so, but like 2 weeks ago, people would say, nobody's spending money, right? And I'm like, really? Like, if you think that nobody's spending money right now, like this is a perfect example where the agency got creative and they created an opportunity for a restaurant to make money. Like, you do have to get creative and find new ways for people to accept your products. And as well as like, you need to get creative on how you take their money. But if you just go to Amazon right now and
Mhm.
try and buy a set of hair clippers, you can't get hair clippers on Amazon right now. So
Uh,
don't tell me that people aren't spending money.
yeah.
They
Hair
just don't know
clippers.
how to spend money with you yet, right? And that's part of the agency owner's responsibility, in my opinion, is we've got to create new ways to sell our products to our clients.
Yeah, totally. And I think, you look at like the Amazons of the world and you start seeing people are buying everything. In fact,
Yes.
it's crazy that it's just switched. Like before, where you're going to see hair clippers and bread makers and all the necessities, right? That people maybe didn't do it. And a lot of, like, you think about like affiliate marketing, a ton of people are, if they were savvy, they started to switch their products immediately when this happened and
Hmm.
started to look for, okay, if this thing goes in further, where do I want to position my company? And they're making it just fine. And now Amazon even is so funny. Like Amazon's about to actually discontinue their affiliate program. That's kind of the word on the street, which is
Yeah.
wild. They don't even need it anymore. And so I think it's really cool to think that, people are going to want to get back to normal. And I'm not saying that they will. I'm not saying normal is good. I'm just saying that there is going to be a massive campaign, if not across the board, of getting back to normal, quote
Yep.
unquote. So
Totally.
we know that's coming. If we know that's coming as agency owners, we have an advantage because people are going to need help. They are going to need a Sherpa, a guide. They're going to need good ideas. They're going to need somebody to help them recover. And I'll tell you, to swing that pendulum back over is not easy. And majority of people are paralyzed and will probably just close their business. And that's a tragedy. So I think that it's funny, if like small business is the backbone of our economy, then I guess the backbone's backbone is the agency owner and the person who's going to come alongside those people.
Yeah, we're like the knee brace.
I could use that right now.
Yeah, you can use that. Just give me some credit somewhere down the line. Chris Martinez.
That's fine. I'm going to do it. I'm going to say it from stage and be like, oh, guys, I forget who said this, but I'm just going to claim it.
All right. So one final question. You know, we had to delay TNC. I don't know if you know this, but dude, we actually blew up because of Traffic and Conversion 2018. And I've actually been trying to do a testimonial for Traffic and Conversion.
We love that.
We went from 5 to 29 employees in 9 months after we did Traffic and Conversion in 2018.
Yeah, no, we need that testimonial, Chris.
Okay. Send somebody over. Just tell me what to say. I'll do a Zoom video. So, you know, we had to delay Traffic and Conversion in 2020. It's scheduled to go in December.
Yes.
What happens, you know, if we're not able to do Traffic and Conversion this year because we have a resurgence in coronavirus or whatever, some other crazy thing happens, aliens come down to Earth or who knows, you know?
Yeah, you know, I think we've man, it was the hardest decision in the world to postpone TNC, and for a fact, we held on a very long time, by the way, and I'm very much in the middle of it. I'm the host or the MC for TNC. So for me, it's like, well, what's going to happen? And we're going back and forth and man, let's just cancel this. But I also own most of our major relationships who happen to be massive sponsors of the event. So we're just having nonstop conversations the entire time leading up to that decision. It was the right decision to make.
I agree. Absolutely the right decision to make.
But I think it was the right decision to also shoot for a December date and try to get something in 2020, because I think there will, I mean, here's the thing. I'm an optimist. So you can take this for what it's worth, but I do believe we can get to a place of a new normal. And what will events look like in December? We're forced to think about creative ways. Like what happens when you walk into a big main room and all of a sudden it's every other chair, right? What happens when we start to see the new measures we put in place that are going to be tracking the sick and who's walking in and testing and, you know, having different things on site, you know, not having those big communal parties that we used to have, but trying to find new ways to do this. And I think that there's a new normal in events, physical events, that we're going to see. I think we're playing on the side of conservative. So if we are going to have something in December, it might be unlike anything you've ever been a part of and still can maintain the ability to have great experience. But I think the experience is going to be different. I'm just going to give you a heads up. The other one is, I think that if we can't do it in December and there's some crazy resurgence, I think we're going to start to see virtual events for the first time. I really believe, like right now, people are like dabbling in them, but I think that there are companies out there that can make them feel like unbelievable productions. Like you're sitting in a movie or you're sitting in an interactive space virtually that feels just incredible and really well produced. And I think that is a real, I mean, it's already happening now. I just think that people right now are kind of like looking at it as a temporary bridge between now and when we could get back to the physical events. And I'm telling you, I actually think virtual to this extent isn't going away. I think it's going to be a parallel in physical events. And I think a lot of companies are starting to see that they can reach their goals of what success looks like with that. So I wouldn't say that Traffic and Conversion Summit would not think about the best way we could deliver on a premium product in a virtual way.
Awesome, man. Well, I'm excited. Whatever happens, I'm excited to see what happens.
Man, I can't wait too. I'm just like you guys. I mean, it's funny. Like I'm inside. I'm an insider, but I as we get closer and closer, man, Traffic and Conversion Summit changed my life. I've been there now for the past 5 years. Traffic and Conversion Summit, spoke, hosted, you know, built a face and a brand off of the back of that event and being, you know, here at DigitalMarketer and having a voice. And so, yeah, it's a very special place, and I couldn't imagine that we would ever want to discontinue it or we would try to get we're getting the most creative people in a room and trying to figure out how to make all this work. So that is, I'm excited about it too.
Great, man. Well, thank you so much for being on our show. We're out of time. What's the best way for people to get in contact with you, Marcus?
Yeah, honestly, man, I live and breathe LinkedIn right now. And so you can find me, Marcus Murphy. Typically, for some reason, is the first one. I don't know. I'm not gaming anything, but, you know, being on the advisory board at LinkedIn, maybe I get some preferential treatment. I don't know. But yeah, LinkedIn's great, man. I love connect people on there. I love content, and that's where I'm sharing.
And who would be the perfect person to reach out to you today?
I mean, honestly, I think that one thing, we do have a pretty incredible agency community. And if you're an agency and you're looking for not only the community parts of it, but you're looking to grow and leverage tools that we've actually created for agencies specifically to acquire customers and license our stuff. Like the cool part I was going to tell you, Chris, is like we actually license our training and all of those products out to certified partners and agencies to use as a part of their tool belt. So yeah, we would always love that. And in fact, I think it's actually digitalmarketer.com/partner, and that'll get them some more information.
Perfect. All right. Well, to all of our listeners, thank you guys for tuning in today, and make sure that you return next Thursday and every Thursday for the next episode of Operation Agency Freedom. Thank you very much.
Thanks, brother.